Right now, across Britain, the same sentence keeps surfacing. King Charles has made a surprise decision about Camilla. It is on every feed, in every group chat, repeated like settled fact. Some say the Queen is being pushed aside. Some say Charles has drawn a line nobody saw coming. It arrives sealed and final, as if it happened behind a palace door you were never meant to open.
It's terrible that after 50 years, it is behind closed doors.
But before you hit share, ask the one thing almost nobody is asking. Is any of it actually true? Because the answer is stranger than the rumor, and once you see it, you cannot look away. The forecast. I have spent days pulling this apart, and I need to walk you through it the way it actually happened, because the trail does not lead where the headlines are pointing. It starts with that forecast. It starts with the woman holding the pen. Stay with me, because once you see how this began, you will not be able to unsee it. Debbie Frank is not a stranger to this world. She was once close to Diana, Princess of Wales, which is part of why people lean in when she says anything about the royal family at all. So, when she offered her reading for the year ahead in Hello magazine late in 2025, it carried a certain weight before a single word of it was twisted. Here is what she actually said, stripped of everything that got piled on top later. She predicted that Camilla's royal role would be rewritten across 2026. She suggested the Queen would step back from the kind of duties the younger royals could just as easily carry, and that the new shape of things would come into focus from April onward. And she was careful, genuinely careful, to add that at 78, Camilla would remain a powerful force, not a woman fading out of view. Read it slowly, and it is almost gentle. A seasoned astrologer offering a soft prediction about a change of pace for a woman in her late 70s. There is no decree in it. There is no scandal. There is no crisis. There is a maybe, dressed up in the language of the stars. That is the seed of everything that followed. One soft prediction, offered in good faith, about a woman slowing down a little in her late 70s. Hold that image because the internet is about to do something violent to it. So, how does a maybe become the most talked about royal decision of the year? How does a quiet paragraph in a magazine turn into a whole nation, convinced that Charles has done something drastic behind closed doors? That is where this starts to get strange. How it spread. Watch what happens to a sentence the moment it leaves the person who wrote it. Debbie Frank's careful forecast did not stay careful for long. It got clipped. The hedges fell away first. The at 78 she remains powerful part. The this is only a prediction part. All the soft words that told you not to take it as fact. What was left behind was harder and louder. Camilla is stepping back. Camilla is being pushed out. Charles has decided. Every repost sanded off a little more of the doubt. A forecast became a report. A report became a leak. A leak became a done deal. And somewhere along that chain, Debbie Frank's name mostly disappeared because a rumor always travels faster when nobody can point to where it began. By the time it reached the loudest corners of the internet, the story had come loose from the woman who first said it, and it had grown a certainty she never once gave it. This is how nearly every royal storm forms now. Not with a flat lie exactly, but with a real thing that gets squeezed and stretched until it says something its author never meant. And the unsettling part is how convincing it looks by the end of that chain. Sealed, confident, final. And you have felt it, have you not? That jolt when a headline lands so cleanly that questioning it feels almost foolish. That is the trap. The cleaner it sounds, the fewer people stop to ask who actually said it first. But here is what kept nagging at me. Rumors like this do not catch fire over nothing. They need dry ground. They need something real underneath to feed the flame. So, the question stopped being what did Debbie Frank say and turned into something sharper. Because a lie with nothing behind it dies in a day. This one did not die. It grew. What did she actually sense that made this land so hard? Before I take you into that, one honest word. If you are tired of royal news that blows up every whisper into a catastrophe, if you would rather have the version that separates what is real from what has simply been stretched, then subscribe to Britain Royals right now. That is the entire reason this channel exists, the honest version, traced all the way back to the source. Because what I found sitting underneath this rumor is far more interesting than the rumor ever was, and I do not want you to miss where it goes. Still everywhere. Start with the simplest test there is. If Charles had truly pushed Camilla out of public life, you would expect her to vanish from it. So, Look at where she has actually been. In March of 2026, she became the first female member ever admitted to the Garrett Club, a London institution that kept women out for nearly 2 centuries. That is not the move of someone being quietly erased. In April, she stood beside the king through a demanding 4-day state visit to the United States. Across the spring and summer, she turned up at Royal Ascot, traveled to Edinburgh for the opening of the Scottish Parliament, and made a visit to Northern Ireland. She remains patron or president of more than 90 charities and organizations. She has been Chancellor of the University of Aberdeen since 2013. She is Honorary Commodore-in-Chief of the Royal Navy Medical Service. Does any of that sound like a woman who has been shown the door? It does not. It sounds like one of the busiest people in the whole institution. A first for a club that held out for 2 centuries. A state visit that would flatten people decades younger. A calendar most of us could not survive a single week of. Erased people do not keep schedules like that. And that is the detail that should stop you cold. Because if Camilla is this active, this visible, this stubbornly present, then the dramatic decision everyone keeps repeating cannot be the whole story, or even most of it. Something is shifting. People are not imagining that part, but it is not the thing they think it is. So, what did Debbie Frank actually catch a glimpse of? To find out, you have to look away from Camilla for a moment, and toward the 2 people whose health quietly rearranged this entire family. The health factor. In February of 2024, Buckingham Palace confirmed that King Charles had been diagnosed with cancer. Around that same stretch, Catherine, Princess of Wales, revealed her own cancer diagnosis and pulled back to focus on treatment, keeping her public duties to a bare minimum. Think about what that did to the working monarchy, almost overnight. 2 of its most important figures, out of action at the same time. And the crown does not stop. The engagements do not pause themselves. So, who filled the gap? Camilla did. Alongside Prince William, Princess Anne, and the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, she took on more, appearing on her husband's behalf, as well as carrying her own. Sit with that for a second, because it flips the whole story. The exact period people now point to as Camilla stepping back was, in truth, Camilla stepping up. She was carrying more, not less. Read that again, because it is the exact inversion of the story you were sold. The woman later written up as the one walking away was, in that stretch, the one holding the doors open so the institution did not stall. That is not a footnote. That is the whole shape of it, flipped inside out. But it exposed something the palace already knew and rarely says out loud. The pool of working royals is small, and it has been shrinking for years. Prince Andrew withdrew from public duties in 2019, Harry and Meghan left their roles in 2020. Pull 2 more out through illness, even for a while, and the whole thing strains at the seams. That strain forced a decision. Not a dramatic one, not a signed one, a practical one, about who carries the weight from here on. And the answer to that pointed straight at the next generation. Who steps up? Watch Catherine across 2026, because this is where the real movement lives. In January, she hosted the victorious England women's rugby team at Windsor. On St. Patrick's Day, she greeted her regiment as Colonel of the Irish Guards. In June, she took her place at the Order of the Garter. Piece by piece, she has been growing into a bigger, more visible role than she has ever held before. And she is not doing it alone. Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, patron of more than 70 organizations, has become a steady anchor at nearly every major occasion, taking on much of what Prince Philip once carried. Princess Anne remains one of the hardest working members of the entire family, year after year after year. The load is moving, quietly and deliberately, toward the people who will carry this monarchy for the next 30 years. This is what a handover actually looks like, up close. Not a slammed door, not a dramatic exit. Just a rota, quietly rewritten, one engagement at a time, until one day you glance up and the faces at the front have changed. And this is the moment to be fair to Debbie Frank. Because when you line her forecast up against what is actually happening, she was not wrong. She said duties would pass to younger royals. They are passing to younger royals. She said Camilla's role would be redrawn from the spring. It is being redrawn. So maybe this is it. Maybe this is the surprise decision the whole country has been arguing about. A king staring down his own illness, his daughter-in-law's recovery, and his wife's age, quietly choosing to shift the monarchy's weight onto younger shoulders. Is that the decision? Did Charles actually make a call, even if nobody ever signed a scroll? To answer that honestly, you first have to understand what stepping back really means inside a royal life, because it is almost nothing like what it sounds. What stepping back means, that phrase is doing an enormous amount of damage, and almost none of it is fair. When people hear that a royal is stepping back, they picture punishment, demotion, disgrace, a title torn away in a cold room. That is not what it means. Not here, not ever. Royals recalibrate their workloads their entire lives. They pick up some patronages and let others go. They keep the engagements that matter most and pass the rest along. Queen Elizabeth herself did exactly this in her final years, releasing duties and letting family deputize for her at events she could no longer attend. Nobody called that a fall. It was simply what a long life of service asks. So, if Camilla hands some engagements to Catherine, to Sophie, to Anne over the coming year, here is what does not change. She is still queen. She is still the king's wife. She still holds her patronages and her place at every great occasion of state. The center does not move. Only the smaller, everyday duties change hands. That is the difference the panic is counting on you to miss. Strip the word back of its cruelty, and it turns into something almost tender. An older woman letting younger ones carry the heavy end of the load. Leave the cruelty in, and you have got yourself a scandal. Same facts, opposite feeling, which should settle the whole thing. It should make the panic dissolve on the spot. And yet it does not, quite, because a question is still hanging over all of it. If the truth is this measured, this reasonable, this undramatic, then why did it explode the way it did? And underneath all that noise, did Charles decide anything at all? That is the real payoff, and it is time I gave it to you straight. The real decision. Here it is, the thing the thumbnails will never tell you. There was no surprise decree, no sealed document, no dramatic private order handed down about Camilla's future. The palace has confirmed nothing of the kind, because there is nothing of the kind to confirm. What there is quieter and far more real. Charles has wanted a slimmed-down monarchy for years, long before the crown ever touched his head. A smaller core, fewer working royals, focus instead of spectacle. An illness pressed fast forward on that whole vision. When the king is fighting cancer, when the future queen is recovering, when the current queen is 78, the sensible move makes itself. You let the younger generation take on the duties that demand years of stamina, and you let the senior figures aim their energy where it matters most. That is the decision, not an event, a direction. A slow, deliberate handover of duty from one generation to the next. The kind of thing that never arrives with an announcement, because it was never a single moment to begin with. There is no scroll to leak because there is no scroll. There is no signing because there was nothing to sign. The whole drama needs one dramatic moment to exist, and that moment simply is not there. What is there is patience and arithmetic, and a family doing the obvious thing. And now circle all the way back to Debbie Frank, because this is where her thread finally ties off. She did not leak a secret. She did not break a story. She read the pattern early, named a real shift before it was obvious, and then watched her careful little forecast get grabbed, hardened, and rebuilt into a decision she never once described. She was closer to the truth than any of the people shouting about her. The internet just could not bear to leave her prediction as quiet as she wrote it. But saying Camilla is not being pushed out is not the same as saying nothing is being taken from her. So, what does she actually keep in all of this? And what, if anything, does she lose? What she keeps, remember who this woman is. She married Charles in April of 2005. After decades of a hostility that would have flattened almost anyone, she became queen consort in September of 2022, and she was crowned queen at the coronation in May of 2023. One royal author has described her journey as the near mirror opposite of Meghan Markle's, a woman who started in scandal and moved slowly and stubbornly toward acceptance. The Independent has named her among its most influential women. You do not climb a mountain like that and then get erased by a magazine forecast. If anything, it is the security of her position that lets a rebalancing happen this calmly. She has nothing left to prove, and she has built things that are entirely her own. Above all, the Queen's Reading Room, a literacy project she grew from a lockdown book club into a full charity with its own festival and library. That does not get handed to a successor. That belongs to her. So, what does she lose? A slice of the diary, some of the smaller engagements, the punishing pace of a woman half her age. That is the whole cost of it. Set against a settled marriage, a secure crown, and a legacy she built with her own hands. It is not a punishment at all. It might even be a relief. Picture it from her side for a second. Decades of being the most scrutinized woman in Britain, and now the option to set down the smallest, most exhausting parts of it while keeping everything she fought so hard to win. If that is a loss, it is a very strange-looking one, which leaves exactly one question worth arguing about. And it is the one I most want to hear you answer. What to watch, so watch the spring. Watch whether Camilla's role narrows the way Debbie Frank predicted, with more of her engagements quietly passing to Catherine, Sophie, and Anne. If it does, then a single forecast in Hello magazine will have described something true long before the rest of us noticed. And watch the noise too, because the next time a quiet royal story gets stretched into a scandal, you are going to recognize exactly how it happened, sentence by sentence, repost by repost. And here is the question I promised you. When a monarchy shifts its weight from one generation to the next, is that a queen being sidelined, or a queen making room before anyone ever has to ask her to? Tell me where you land in the comments, because this is the argument the whole country keeps circling back to, and I honestly want to hear your side of it. And if you want the honest version of every twist in this family's story, the version traced all the way back to the source, subscribe to Britain Royals and turn on the notification bell, because the next chapter of this handover is already being written. And I will be right here to tell you what is real the moment it is.